So what is fiat money? Fiat money is government-issued currency that is not backed by a physical commodity, such as gold or silver, but rather by the government that issued it. The value of fiat money is derived from the relationship between supply and demand and the stability of the issuing government, rather than the worth of a commodity backing it, as is the case for commodity money. Most modern paper currencies are fiat currencies, including the US dollar, the euro, and other major global currencies. So basically, it's toilet money. Since they got rid of the gold and silver standard, there's no money, or excuse me, there's no gold or silver backing the toilet paper money that we receive today, because the people are the commodity, the credit debt slavers. We are the money. That's why they got rid of the gold and silver. If you look under the 14th Amendment, okay, under sovereignty, okay, but America is a corporation. It's not a country. 1871. Also, your birth certificate, your bond number, your bondman, bondwoman, that is sold on American Stock Exchange. People are the commodity. If you don't have debt slavers working, you can't have an economy. That's why they build the prison industrial systems, the NBA, the NFL. Black seed is a very lucrative business, I mean, in this society. But yeah, the people are the commodity. The people are the money. So the central banks. A central bank is an independent national authority that conducts monetary policy, regulates banks, and provides financial services, including economic research. Its goals are to stabilize the nation's currency, keep unemployment low, and prevent inflation. Key word: prevent inflation. Now we see inflation is rising because they keep printing all this money, but there's nothing to back it up. There's no gold, there's no silver. Okay. Most central banks are governed by a board consisting of its members, banks. The country's chief elected official appoints the director. The national legislative body approves him or her. That keeps the central banks aligned with the nation's long-term policies goals. Okay. So central banks are responsible for overseeing the monetary system for a nation or a group of nations, along with a wide range of other responsibilities, from overseeing monetary policy to implementing specific goals such as currency stability, low inflation, and full employment. And we know inflation is not low because they keep going up. More inflation, more money. Okay. And everything based on society is a credit debt system, tax credit. Even when you own land, you don't pay your taxes. They take it from you. Do you really own it? No, because it's the way it was designed by people who run this government and set up these policies. Okay, I guess you can call that capitalism.
I recognize Andrea and the team here at Solomon. It's great to be back. We were here in September signing some bills, economic relief bills, bond acceleration bills, hiring tax credit of $100 million. We put out a framework to allow new businesses to have that $800 franchise tax fee waived as well. We've seen a 21% increase in new business startups just in the last calendar year. So the issue of economic growth, economic development, economic incentives, tax credits, supports for small businesses is not unique to this moment.
Max and Stacy discuss the history of the monopoly board that is the U.S. economy, whereby the Fiat Pyramid scheme started in 1971, only a few short years after the Civil Rights Act. Those who held all the assets in 1971 became fabulously wealthy compared to those without assets, as the central bank began printing money furiously over the ensuing decades. That's the Cantillon effect. Whoever has all the assets, whoever's closest to the money printing, they get all the wealth. Whoever's closest to the money printing, they get all the wealth. Whoever's closest to the money printing, they get all the wealth.
And these bills that we're signing today, it's been a cause that's united each and every one of us, legislative leaders and the legislature, and of course, advocates across the spectrum here in the state of California. The backbone of our economy is small business. We recognize the stress, the strain that so many small businesses have been under, and we recognize as well our responsibility to do more and do better to help support these small businesses through this very difficult and
central bankers very quickly said, wait a minute, we can't let this happen. Let's get off the gold standard and take control of the money supply, take control of the dollar, and this way we can keep our monopoly positions and not share anything.
Right. So the important date is August of 1971. That is when the Fiat Pyramid scheme, that is the current US dollar iteration, started. Whoever had the assets at that time, whoever had the jobs at that time that were still linked to inflation, whoever got to be the generation, whether it was the boomer generation versus now the Generation Z, who are at the last stage of this pyramid scheme, or at that same time, you know, the racial inequality that did not get even the beginnings of the disintegration of that didn't happen until after the mid-60s. So they had been for hundreds of years cut out of owning the assets. So when the pyramid scheme started in 1971, whoever was there first enjoys the most wealth today.
Exactly right. The money printing and the central bank policies, as you point out, it is basically a pyramid scheme that came into existence in force in 1971. And the people who owned assets back then were able to ride the pyramid scheme for 45 years as more money is being printed and the value of those assets goes up, like Park Avenue apartments, like fine art, like chateaus. These are the things that are owned by the folks that started this pyramid scheme, that are the purveyors of this pyramid scheme. And the racial inequality exacerbated. It got worse. And also just basically the divide between rich and poor in America is at its most extreme because of this pyramid scheme, for this reason, by design. By design. Look at the money itself.
Yes.
They believe in the fiat money. They believe the central bank. They believe Janet Yellen. They believe Ben Bernanke. They believe Jay Powell. They believe the words coming out of their mouth. And that's the first fail. And then every single fail comes after that foundational failure to understand the money itself. When it's not backed by anything, it's just paper, and only a few people control it, and they get to divvy the pie. Only a few people control it, and they get to divvy the pie. So the Cantillon effect kicks in, and they keep 90 cents of every dollar they print. That's not going to change progressives ever.
Okay.
They say, you see the headlines, the central bank's going to cure racial inequality. No, the central bank created racial inequality, and the policy of printing more is going to widen racial inequality. You've got 40 years of proof,
50.
Progressives.
50.
Empirical, unquestionable truth to verify that statement.
And
So what are you going to do?
Nobody wants to give up their own wealth. That's the thing. That's what they're saying here. They don't want to give up the assets that will indeed ultimately end racial inequality. If they give some of the assets that should have been had by the other populations, whether by race, gender, or other factors that were pre-1971 discrimination.
I think that's what we fail to realize sometimes, that the Ish community, they own the society. I mean, whether you look in the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, the 3 volumes, from Hollywoodisms, that documentary, to the central banks, the Federal Reserves, they own this economy. That's why they can pay themselves. They always get millions, probably billions and trillions of dollars from the Holocaust. And yet, our people always complain about reparations. And we know they're not going to give it to us because they benefit off of black dollars. The black man's seed is worth billions, trillions. The entertainment, prison industrial systems, and everything else, they will not let that go. This is a spiritual warfare. Okay. And you see the societies collapsing. Plagues, famine. Tiger Woods was just in a car accident and many other incidents. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's one thing and then it's another. These are definitely end times, but you know, they think they can solve this problem, but I don't think they can solve it. I know they ain't gonna solve it. You can impress people for so long, you know, especially the most highest people. So he's working, and this system can't go back to normal. We'll go back to the police shootings, the killings, and the injustice. A lot of the laws of the land are not based on no Torah. They're based on the Babylonian Talmud, which is an evil book by the Khazars, the ones that call themselves the Ish. So nah, man. You're basically seeing the downfall of America, Rome, Egypt, whatever you want to call it. I want to say one more thing. Also, you have this puppet, Herschel Walker, on Fox News talking about reparations with this other so-called black guy. And they're traitors to their own people. I mean, they're talking about blacks don't need reparation. And then you have this non-educated, I didn't go to college and get a master's degree, but I know a little about history. And they have this puppet, just because he can run a football and he got a Fruity Loop son, as a cheerleader, he gets on TV and talk about blacks don't need reparations, and talk about reparations equals separation. Well, I bet he won't dare say the Jewish community because they're the ones who got reparations. So did the Chinese. They won't dare say that on television. But when it's the so-called African Americans, it's separatist. Why is that? They don't want black people to unite. Okay, just like in the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. Same thing. They don't want black people to come together, because when so-called black people come together, or when the nation of Israel really come together, that's a wrap. That's it. But peace and shalom.